Okay, we're gonna move along here. Take a break from working on my face here. I got the eyes pretty much in there. Again, same with anything. As we go, as it gets closer to finished, I'm gonna spend a little more time, put a little more detail, get the shapes a little closer to what I want. Still have to address the ears, but I want to take a break from the face for a little bit. And we're gonna get my other arm put on there. Now the plan is I don't have one. No, that's not true. We have an idea. I don't know if I'd call it a plan. It's more of an idea. Okay, this arm here, I have my elbow slightly out away from my body and coming up with a big kind of cartoonish looking hand and thumb, which I made to look like my hand and thumb. So I guess I have a cartoonish hand and thumb. Anyway, so we got that side on there pretty close. I'd say 95% ready to go. Now this one, I'm just going to have it come down and just slightly bent down at the elbow and come across the front of my body, kind of like it. It's just kind of how my arm hangs naturally sometimes. So just kind of come across here, and we'll carve a hand with the carving glove on this end. So in order to do that, we started with a big block of wood. So we carved that down. Well, now we kind of have an idea what that arm size and shape is going to look like on here. I took some reference measurements, real rough. I mean, the whole idea here is when you're adding body parts, or it doesn't have to be a body part, when you're adding things to a carving, separate pieces of wood, my theory anyway, is that you want bigger, chunky things that, consider the grain direction for what you're carving, and also just have plenty of wood there that you can carve it down. And like you can see here on this shoulder, it's up higher and it sticks out more. And on the back, you can definitely see it's up higher and sticking out more over here. I haven't addressed that yet because I want to wait until this piece is on here, glued on and ready to carve, and then I'll just carve them together, just like we did over here. And you won't, I mean, you can see the glue line there, but there's no ridge there. That's one surface because I carved it together, and that's what we're going for. So I took some reference dimensions to my arm and come over here to a block of wood. This is a 2x2. It's the same. It's what's left over after cutting the other arm out. This one, because it's not going to be bent as much, I'm taking a little bit more out of this block of wood. And now that I look at this, I think I might want to make this a little bit thicker here yet, because that just looks a little bit narrow to me. So when we cut it, we'll actually come in a little bit further. It's pretty easy to knock some wood off of there. What am I doing? All upside down, twisted. I'm just going to eyeball it here just to make this a little thicker. I did it once already. This first is a 1/2 inch. It just happens to be the thickness of this ruler. But we're going to add another little bit on here. I think I'll do it both directions. I'll do that in both directions. We'll add a little bit. Okay. And so that's going to be the general shape. Now, you have to think of this in a way where you got to consider both views, and I'm considering the grain direction. I don't want the grain to like come straight across the arm here, make it weak and break it off. And I don't really want it to go down this direction either, because then it will kind of get weak at the elbow. So I'm doing a kind of a 45 here, trying to get the most out of the grain direction. The grain runs this way on this piece. Um, so that's why I laid it out on the block like that, is to get the most strength out of the arm. Okay, and add here. I'm just kind of second guessing my original lines here. Just gonna make it a little bit bigger. It's so easy to shave it off, but you just can't. You don't want to end up with a skinny arm. So, like I said, this would be like the top view. If you're looking straight down, like my head would be here. This is gonna go on the shoulder, and this is how the arm is gonna angle over in front of my body. But if we look at the side view, this will be up. It's designed. I got this laid out here so that, you know, the shoulder is going to end up being somewhere in here. But again, leaving extra so I can carve them together. And then that comes down, and we come down to the elbow. I want to be able to angle that down a little bit. So at the elbow, which will end up being right here somewhere, I want to angle that down. So by angling it this way and angling it this way, it should hopefully kind of just lay right in front of my belly. So that's what we're going to do. That's how I went about laying this out. Consider the wood grain for the most strength. Consider both views on how you want the arm to end up in the three-dimensional space here when we're putting it on. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go over to the bandsaw and cut this out, and we'll get it stuck on there, and we'll carve it in place. Okay, back from the bandsaw, and I think it was in the Comfort Bird video. I mentioned this tip I learned from a Lynn Doty video a while back, where you don't cut all the way through. You leave just a little bit, tiny little bit in there where you don't cut, and then you can just snap that off later. You don't have to worry about taping the other direction back on there. Okay, and then this piece here is scrap. You want to remove that. Just pop it off of there. You see it leaves a little bit, but that's easily cut off. Now I could have cut down. We want to bring this down. This will be the front of the shoulder going into the arm. Kind of like, I don't know. We'll see how it fits on there, and we cut it. But we're just going to cut it off of here. I could have made that cut while this was still in here. But sometimes I balance that with, you know, the fact that it's an extra step versus maybe this piece of wood is big enough to use for something else. Why cut it into smaller pieces if I don't have to? So I'm going to go back to the bandsaw. I'm just going to make one more quick cut here, and we'll see how it looks on our project. Okay, back from the bandsaw again. Now this doesn't look a whole lot like an arm at this point, but that's by design. I'll just clean up this little bit of a piece that was left in here, so that's not in our way. Okay, see. Okay, so that's gonna. I'm seeing a flaw with this design. Man, who planned this out? Okay, so right now, even with that tip down and back as far as it'll go, still not crazy about how that lands on there. So I think we're going to modify it a little bit more. The shoulder looks fine. There's enough there to carve in what we want. I think this is coming out a long ways. This needs to go like 2.5 inches from the elbow. So yeah, there's be like right here, which I think that will be fine, especially if we carve it so the hand is sideways, like in here. Let's have my hand out awkwardly out in front of my body a little bit. That'll be fine. Put the shoulder on there, and I think if the shoulder's coming straight down like this, maybe even a little bit forward, like that. Our elbow, it puts our elbow right here. This can be rounded off here in this area so that we start coming in like this. We're going to get that guy stuck on there right like that. Then we're going to bring that down at an angle as much as we can and carve off the outside of this piece to shape the arm as much as we can. Just kind of getting this inside edge just rounded, not really bringing it back. So we'll do most of our shaping on the outside. That will keep the arm close-ish to the body, and I think that will look okay from the front. Okay, plan. Let's get that stuck on there. As much of an angle there as we can, like that. Okay, we're going to get that arm stuck on there. Same process as before. Take our 3/16 dowel, nice sharp knife. We'll just roll that back and forth on there a little bit. Snap it off. I like to just chamfer the ends again just to make sure it doesn't catch on the edges of the hole when it's trying to push it in there. Got a piece of sandpaper, you could quickly run it on there a little bit, take that edge off too. It would be fine. It would work well. And one of the reasons I for a while I was kind of getting into more woodworking, building things out of wood. I kind of got away from that because I ended up having a kind of a problem with dust allergies and didn't really want to invest in a big dust collection system. And it's another reason I just kind of stuck with this wood carving. It's just it's a little messy. You get little chips of wood here and there, but it's not really any dust. So if I don't have to sand, I don't want to. Okay, we'll take we'll get our drill and let's just take a look here before we commit to it. We're about right there. Now we drilled almost all the way through there, which means when we carve this outside shape and round it, we'll probably see the end of this dowel again. But we already have that kind of going on this side. Not a big deal. Just part of the process. If you didn't want to do that, you just be careful to drill a little bit less here, so as you're carving, it doesn't show up. And we might get by, but I might have went a little too deep. Clean up the edge of this hole. I just want this pin to go in here nice without a lot of force and catching and dragging. Okay, just test fit that in there. And I mentioned before, I like to hold that up there, see if I can get it in the first shot this time. If you can hold everything steady, and run the camera out at the same time. You can sneak in there with the pencil and mark that spot. But what I'm going to do is do a little bit of eyeballing. I'm going to say right there. And it looks like that went in pretty straight into that block. So again, we'll want to maintain as close as we can to a 90 degree to that shoulder when we drill in there. Clean up the edge of the hole. All right, let's see how we did. It was in there straight. We're not able to bring it down much. But I think before we glue it in there, we're gonna round this bottom edge right here so that we can move this down a little bit. It'll give us a little clearance right there at the bottom. And it needs to be rounded anyway, and it would be easier to do that before we glue it in. Otherwise, got a fairly decent fit around that front corner of the body just a little bit also. Okay. We get a carving glove on. And just kind of smoothing out that front corner. We can do the back side here too a little bit. We made that flat all the way down, but we aren't going to use that entire flat surface. And then I'm going to go ahead and round the bottom of this arm some too. I'm going to kind of save out on the hand there to see what everything looks like. Get some of these inside areas where it's going to be hard to reach once it's glued on. Okay, I think we'll give that a try. See if we get it fit on there a little nicer. Okay, so here's a happy little accident. If you can tell, I don't have that hole drilled perfect. We're ending up with is tight on the front and a gap in the back. This will help us out here. This is how things just kind of, you adapt and you make things work and you fix it as you go. I'm showing you this process. This is what I do. And so you can see down here, we've got room between the belly and the arm. And I wanted that a little bit closer to the arm, or to I wanted the arm a little closer to my belly. And we want this flat across here to have a good gluing surface without a big gap. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this arm off and take the pin out, and we're going to carefully make a nice flat surface, but change the angle of it a little bit so that it's a better fit across here, and that will tilt this all in, bring it a little closer to the belly. So it's going to work out. Just like I planned that the whole time. I did. Nope. Okay, get this guy out of here. Now we want to bring the front down. This is nice and flat this way. We're going to tip the front of our knife down a little bit and make a pass across here. Oops, try not to cut off my head. And we're going to try to hold that angle the same. Just make a few passes. We should start seeing, I talked before about watching the line, like where the angle changes. You can see how the light hits it differently. We'll just watch that line work its way over to this edge as we hold that angle and just keep taking a little wood off. I gotta be careful. I'm gonna cut my ear off there in a minute. It's a little bit awkward to get my hands around this right now. That line's working over. Just trying to keep it flat. Okay, let's see how we're doing. See how it closed the gap on there? And it brought it over. Let's put the pin in there, see if that changes anything. Okay. You've got to come a little bit more off the top. And it's hitting right in there. I'll come over here and round this. A little more room for that arm to swing in. And we'll try to take a little more off this top outside edge. Okay. Not quite there yet. Kind of making it rounded. So what we're going to do, grab the heavy rough out knife here. It's got a little longer blade, and we'll be able to get a flatter shot across there. Check out this ruler. That's pretty flat. See that? Not much gap there. Looks pretty good down here. We do have it falling off a little. There's a little bit of a ridge there. But I don't think I better take it in any further. See how we're doing. And I think what I might do is, because we're going to end up with a little bit of a uneven gap there, I'm going to cheat a little bit here. We'll stretch that hole this way a little bit, sideways, front to back. Hopefully give us a little bit more forgiveness here. There we go. Now, I like that. Okay. Got the Pro Gel super glue. Okay. Now, get this side all covered in glue. Put a lot on there. We want it to squeeze out and fill in the crack around the side. Okay. And then I'm going to spray this side with the accelerator so that when we stick them together, we'll be good to go here. It just gave that a few squirts. And let's get this stuck together.